summing it up just kind of felt like it was a bit of a task. I mean, we might have even talked about titles and kind of gone over it a bit, and it just felt like we were trying to add one more layer of complexity on it that didn't need to really be there. So we just said, how about just call it the band name?
And we've never had a self-titled record.
Yeah.
So.
I think we took our time a little bit more in the sense of maybe for the last few records, those first 12 might have just kind of turned into the record, and we wouldn't have kind of added on another 2 or 3 more songs, and probably wouldn't have. We re-recorded a couple, 2 or 3 things that sort of changed pretty dramatically. Adding on a couple songs at the last minute, Gone, I think, was one that got added on. I think we just let it go a little bit longer and came back to it and let it go and came back to it a few more times, which I think ended up making the record stronger than it could have been, I think, if we had just sort of taken that initial week and just kind of finished it right then or something. But
Well, I mean, I think looking back, the fact that we were able to take breaks, and there were a handful of times during that Vitalogy era when things got tense, we just said, let's just take a break and maybe cancel this tour and maybe cancel these shows and, let everybody kind of just retreat and, collect their thoughts. And I think those handful of moments where we did those things, and I don't know if it was wisdom or just survival or whatever, but I think those things kind of really saved it because, there's no classroom that tells you what pace is the healthy pace. Basically people are just saying, throwing this stuff at you, and it all seems cool. And on paper, it's like, well, hell yeah, I want to play with Keith Richards, and I want to go make a record with Neil Young, and I want to do this, and I want to. But after a few years of just kind of being around each other all the time, talking about ourselves all the time, and it was huge at that point. I think it's just too much energy. It implodes, and somehow we eluded that for the most part. So, I think a little bit of luck and a little bit of just kind of sensing that it might not last if we don't kind of just take a break right now.
I think we went in the week before the last presidential election with between Kerry and Bush, and we had been out on the road before that, Vote for Change tour with a bunch of other artists, and kind of a collaborative process, and trying to provide a bit of, trying to educate a few people and maybe have a slight influence on the election. So when it came out, not the way we were expecting or hoping, the studio was a great place to come to and exercise our feelings and demons and emotions that otherwise I'm not sure how they would have manifested themselves. I think when you've got a child that's in your care and that you're raising, then I think that young life deserves your undivided and complete attention. So that was learning how to kind of get outside my own head and be there exclusively for that kid who deserves that. That was a tricky one. It's not that hard because the child demands that in a very undemanding way. Just by being there, they kind of make that happen. But it was a switch that I had to learn how to control, and probably wouldn't have been that open to the idea of trying to do this kind of work and raise a family if it weren't for seeing Matt and his family. And the only problem is he just made it look really easy.
And it's not.
And it's not.
It's such an individual thing. It's like, you know, we have these jobs that aren't really 9 to 5, and it takes us away from our families for a long amount of time. But, you know, just like any family, you just make it work.
I heard something interesting recently from Springsteen, and he was worried because he was trying to, you know, part of being a parent is you protect them from harm at all times, and it's just this innate kind of instinctual thing that happens, and that he was worried that maybe by clearing their path, they weren't going to have the same kind of struggles that he did, and perhaps leave them a little less rounded as individuals, or grounded even. But and I had that same thought, and he relayed an answer that was pretty interesting. Like, no, you're a parent. You go ahead and do that. That's what you do. Take care of them to the best of the ability. The world will take care of the rest of that. The world will provide them with all the challenges.
Absolutely.
Not everybody in the world can relate to what you do or what, some of the things you've been through. But these are examples of people that do understand everything and are actually pretty free with their kind of sharing their wisdom. Bottom line is all these people love music the same way that you do. That's another thing that you have in common. So someone like Robert Plant, just, you know, learning about certain records, whether they were old or even new, or from, you know, faraway places that somehow he got a hold of before we did, and his references when we were working out songs as to, you know, how a vocal should sound or what it reminds him of or something, were kind of third or fourth tier. It was kind of deep, his musical knowledge. So that's something that you might get down at the local bar or tavern or something, but it's so galvanized coming from them. And the Bruce thing was, yeah, he basically handed me the keys to the E Street Band, and the idea was just to see if you could get it into fifth gear and take some corners, and we pulled it. We did it pretty good, I think.
You did. It's pretty cool for us to see, like, we did a show with the Stones, and they invited Ed to go up and sing Wild Horses. We were out in the crowd watching, and it was just like, that's my boy. It's cool, man. It's just cool to see how, like, they accept Ed as kind of like one of their own. It's cool.